Won't you lend your lungs to me? Mine are collapsing. Plant my feet and bitterly breathe up the time that's passed. Breath I'll take and breath I'll give. Pray the day's not poised. Stand among the ones that live in lonely indecision.
Good morning, James.
Good morning, Lynn.
It's December 4th, and we're in the midst of your year-end blackout. But I got special permission to call in and tape a short episode number 20.
Oh, it's nice to hear from you.
All right, thank you for making an exception.
Well, I thought about it, and it's, this is your work, these podcasts, so, it didn't make any sense for me to put a blip in what you were doing, because my brain was starting to fry and unravel at the same time.
Well, you need time off. Everybody needs time off, so I'm glad that you are taking it, and it's fine to take time off of the podcast too, but I'm also happy that you're available for a quick chat today.
Okay. Yeah, the time off has been great. Looks like I'm writing slightly higher on my word count than I usually am when I'm posting online, because I'm not taking time to post things. I'm canning some things and setting them in a folder to put up on New Year's Eve. But a lot of this stuff is just going directly into the books and isn't going to get posted. It's a good way to finish books, so I'll hopefully end up having a regular schedule of finishing books, so I won't have to take time off to do something like this and continue to post every day in the future.
All right. Yeah, you're going to have to come up maybe with a little bit of a new routine, because the time has come for you to leave the grocery business behind, which is great, I think. I'm really happy about that.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
My last shift will be leading into New Year's, or into Christmas Eve morning. That'll be my last shift.
All right. So you're not going to have to work at night. You could stay up at night if that's what you like to do, but I think it'll be good for you not to have night shifts at work.
Yeah, looking at my writing schedule so far, I've been keeping a log that, the biggest impact on my writing is work.
Oh, yeah, it has to be. Yeah.
So I will, I think I'm hoping I'm going to be able to finish 20 of these 32 books that I have in progress before May.
Wow.
Because a lot of them have a lot done in them. And I wrote a whole novella this weekend. I knew I could do that because I did a novel in a month like 5 years ago when I wrote Thunderboy that only took me 4 weeks to do 97,000 words. And, I've done between 20 and 30,000 words this weekend. So, and that's 20,000 words is a novella, that types out in the type of books I produce at about 120 pages.
Right, and that's Thunderbird, is that right? Sorry, that's
Yes.
Thunderbird. My kid is yelling here. Yeah, and then before you publish, you have another short story that's going in there. It's almost done also, right?
There were a couple other short stories in here, and the Checkered Demon sent me one to put in here because we have one by Tony Cox and 3 by him, and I have to write The Negotiator, which is actually a story that's outlined by Joseph Belafato, the artist, and I'll be executing it. Thunderbird turned out to be about 20,000 words, 110 pages, and that idea was Ishmael's. I executed it. I am almost done writing Animal Control. I have to write the final scene. That's LL Coon J and Cooter Boone.
That was born in the Rocky Mountains over in September.
Yeah, so that's the redneck deer and the hip-hop raccoon teaming up to wipe out humanity. And I just have to write that last scene and then write The Negotiator, and the book's done, other than making sure it's all arranged right, and then sending it out to you to get edited. So
I wanted to ask you, since we're talking today really just about writing, I wanted to ask you when you use the word myopic to describe a story, because I have myopia in my eyes. I wear glasses, but I want to know what that means in the literary sense.
I forget where I read the reference descriptions. Other than my using it, I've only read it once. And my use of the word means a very narrowly focused linear storyline from a circumscribed perspective. For instance, By the Sex, which is really, I wrote it 6-7 years ago, but it's part of the novel Seven Moon State, is a story from a narrow character, a character with no habit for self-examination, and doesn't care much for things periphery to his objective. So it's a very narrowly focused storyline. So it's a word I use to describe that. I wasn't the first one to come up with it, but I cannot tell you. I think I read it as an insult. I think I read it as a critical statement on that type of story in a science fiction magazine or something.
Oh, interesting. Well, for vision, it means that I'm nearsighted, so I can only see what's really close to my face. I don't know. Maybe that's, I guess that's, in a sense, that's a narrow focus. That's helpful, because I've seen you use it a couple times, and I had meant to ask you for a while about that.
Yeah, so that's what I use it to mean. The opposite of an epic that's broad and has depth and a lot of different characterizations. It's a very selfish story, and everything in Thunderbird is written that way. It's very narrowly focused.
Right.
There's a tiny bit of introspection on the part of the one character, which I really based on one of the two main characters, Axe and Sack of the Bear Clan and Panther Across the Moon of the Wolf Clan. They're really based on my two guides from last year out in the West, Shane and Ishmael, when they were teenagers, because they talked to me a lot about what their life was like when they were teenagers. So I just made these two characters, a 30 and 40-year-old Arrested Development warfighter that still had similar personalities to those two fellows as they described them to me when they were younger.
Oh, that's nice to know, because that story is for Ishmael, who is may well be under the knife as we speak.
Yes, right now I should be.
Yeah. Good luck, man.
Getting a new knee.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you if you have any updates, because we haven't been hearing about your commutes and your wanderings through the post-apocalyptic war zone that you live in. So any anarcho-tyranny updates can you give us?
I wrote a few pieces about my recent experiences out and about. They're going in Autumn in a Dying City, and a couple of them I will post on New Year's Eve, but okay. Not all of them. Our murders were up to 322 at last check, so 5 since I did my last post. Yeah, we're still poking around one a day.
There's a guy from the Fire Academy that was killed today or yesterday.
Oh. Okay, so that's one that I'm not up on. The murder map that I'm using lags behind a day or so. The big thing that's going on right now, as far as the crime goes, is still this case of the Detective Suter that was killed.
Yeah, that's wild.
A number of Baltimore City police officers and other people suspect that there might have been some federal agent behind this killing. The Black Baltimore City administration and many of the black folks that I have talked to and listened to seem to think that it's a Baltimore City cop that did the deed, and they're calling for a federal investigation. So it's like you have people in Baltimore that are split between who do they trust the least, the feds or the local cops.
Yeah.
And there's a strong push with some prominent Baltimore City administration people, including an elective representative, to turn more and more law enforcement in Baltimore over to the federal authorities. And this has been ongoing since this started with the Freddie Gray thing.
All right.
And the Justice Department isn't behaving any differently in Baltimore City under God Emperor Trump than they were under, what did the Chinese call him, the evil monkey, the former president. So as far as Baltimore goes, Holder's administration and the DOJ behaved no differently than what's going on now out of the Trump DOJ. But I also think that Baltimore didn't want help from the new administration.
Yeah.
They
imagine they're hostile.
Right. They seem to be big believers in the bureaucracy and the unelected federal system.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of chatter now about the FBI and the DOJ, and when you think about the bureaucracy, it's absolutely got a huge amount of momentum.
So it looks like we're heading that way. Maybe a giant Camden that'll be policed by U.S. Marshals and the ATF. Yeah, I'm just keeping as far away from all the crime and people on the street. I go out when there's minimal traffic out. My Baltimore right now is pretty much always deserted. That's when I choose to go out to get whatever I need.
That's a wise policy.
Yeah, I'm just, part of it is not that I think that I'm in any special or increased danger. I don't want to see something that I'm going to have to report on because my mind's wired that way, that something interesting happens and I'm out and about, and it's going to take away from me doing one of these history or fiction books.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And I did spend 4 or 5 hours writing articles yesterday, non-fiction Harm City articles. Which, if I wouldn't have done that, I would have finished this book that I'm still working on finishing right now. But since I was out and about, I wasn't going to waste impressions that I had gathered, because I also want to finish the next Harm City book as well.
That's right. Very good. Okay, well, I think that's good. I want to keep this short because I know you have a lot of things you want to get done. But do you have a reading or an artwork that you wanted to share today?
I have 2 brief ones. All right, I'm looking at an illustration of Guy Johnson with an Iroquois chief in the background in deep shadow. The Iroquois chief is indistinct. His prominent aquiline nose is distinct, and the shape of his head. And he could really be a man of any race, if not for the really light tone of his skin that's showing through out of the shadow. He's looking over the shoulder of Guy Johnson, who's standing for a portrait. This is a 1776 oil on canvas by Benjamin West. It's in the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., the Andrew W. Mellon collection. This is a controversial figure who worked with alliances with the Iroquois, an Englishman operating in Canada and what became the United States. This is when you look at how this European is depicted, this sissy Englishman he's not depicted in a flattering manner. This went from around 1700 to 1920. It was very common to see European men happily being depicted as having wide hips and pot bellies and narrow shoulders, and their clothing styles would accentuate these things. So you have this depiction of this sissy Englishman with his pot-bellied paunch and all of his clothing piled on him, all of his different layers that he would wear when he went out. He is wearing his real hair. He is leaning on a musket as he sits with one foot propped up on what might be a stool, and standing next to him is a figure that is a gargantuan giant of manhood by comparison, square, broad-shouldered, forearms as thick as the shins on the Englishman, bald plucked head except for the top knot. He's holding a war axe couch, and the war axes were very light that the Native Americans used. And he's in shadow. This figure is named because the painting is Guy Johnson and Karongi. I can't pronounce it. Okay, I will spell it. Karonghyontye is the name of this Iroquois warrior that's standing in shadow. He also has another name, Captain David Hill. Okay. So that is the piece of artwork from 1776 for white Indians and young Negroes. The man, Guy Johnson, was a superintendent. It was based at Fort Niagara. The reading I have is, I'm reading it from the foreword to my unpublished 1992 book titled Tribes. It's a fantasy book about a future 280 million years in the future, after the continent of Africa has already been split in two along the Rift Valley and in the throes of a deep ice age. The quote I took from an Encyclopedia of Exploration, a book which I no longer possess. I don't know what happened to it. It was a great book. I read it 3 or 4 times. Quote, high up in the north, in the land called Svithjad, there stands a rock. It is 100 miles high and 100 miles wide. Once every 1,000 years, a little bird comes to this rock to sharpen its beak. When the rock is worn away, then the single day of eternity will have gone by. Unquote. Hendrik van Loon. I don't know which book of his this was from. All right. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, James. Thank you for the reading and the artwork, James, and thank you for taking a break and speaking with me and saying hello to all your listeners who miss you dearly.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. And this turned out to be a good break in my writing day. I'll get back to it.
Okay.
And speak again next week. Do you want to do this again?
Yeah, let's do it again.
Okay, thank you.